adjust your set. You're in control of the audio and the video.
It's really hard to go seriously when you do that.
Sorry.
Because I'm like, all I can think of is Twilight Zone now.
It's not Twilight Zone, it's Outer Limits.
Oh, Outer Limits, that's right.
Okay, go ahead.
Welcome to Contents May Vary, Maine. I'm Clyde, and this illustrious fellow here is...
I'm Bill the Butler. Hi.
And today, we have a very important episode.
We really don't. It's just a regular... Every episode is important, and you should remember that, especially if you want to sponsor the show. Again, every episode is a gem. Okay, we'll get to your very odd description of today's show. But first, if you are a first-time visitor to Contents May Vary Maine on YouTube, like, share, hit the little bell so that you always know when we're up to no good, and get notifications whenever we post a new video. Also, if you be a pal, you can go over to Facebook and search for Star 97.7 and Star 70s on Star 97.7 and like both pages. It helps my my radio station and my specialty show, which airs every Saturday night at 10 Eastern Time on Star 97.7, which you can listen to online at star977.com. Your turn to plug whatever you have.
I have so many things. But the big one is, if you want your executive clean done on your commercial building, you should think about looking at www.cleanscene.com, and we will take care of your cleaning needs. But
that is such a overused cliche of advertising. Your needs.
Well, they do. They need something, and that's
it's like, hey, come on down to the House of Comic Books, taking care of all your comic book needs. We don't have comic book needs. We have comic book wants.
Well, yes, I agree. That would be a want. But
and then even with cleaning, and cleaning is something you can do yourself, or you can want to have someone to do a better job and professional job, such as Clean Scene, right?
Well, but what if you just need someone to come in and get it to that level of clean that you just can't
For all
do
your
it?
blankety-blank needs, see
Right.
Clyde.
And, of course, the prototyping side, which is Prototype This 3D. I do have some older YouTube content that I have not been adding to lately because I've been distracted.
You should totally like that on Facebook, too. And that will help us out immensely to continue shows like this. This show costs us $250,000 every episode. We're highly paid for our activities, and the makeup alone is super expensive.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get this level of ugly without, severe makeup and prosthetics.
Truth of the matter is that we're both extraordinarily gorgeous, and we dumb ourselves down for this program. So
yes.
That's why it's so expensive to put on an episode. I can't even do it seriously. All right.
I was doing good up until you said that. All right, take it away, Bill. It's your turn.
We wanted to talk this week about, of course, we're about making things and enhancing things. And so far on the show, we really haven't done that in front of you. We've shown you some things that we've made, or he's made in this case. We've talked about projects we've had. And so future episodes will involve us actually debuting things that we've made. What are you doing? You made this. I'm kind of a big deal for me to be in front of me because, I'm kind of a big deal.
Well, I made it. I got to make 3 more of these, and they're actually going to the Bangor Fire Department
because they're kind of a big deal.
Their chief there actually had seen one of those, and he said, "Oh my God, I really like that." And I said, "Well, why don't I just make some for you?" And he goes, "You think you could make 5 of those?" And I said, "Sure." So there's one of 2 that I've created so far. I have 3 more to do, and then I'm going to take them over to the Bangor Fire Department.
That's pretty awesome. Always support your local fire department, especially your volunteer fire department, because a lot of times it's hard to get people to volunteer nowadays, but when it comes to fire departments, they get a stipend, most of them do, at the end of the year for expenditures for gas, and it's like a check for like $30. I mean, that's what they get for helping you out if your house catches fire, if there's an accident, I'm not going to say a cat up a tree because that really doesn't happen. So bear that in mind. Support your local fire department. And someday, God forbid, they ever have to help you, they can.
And always take a moment to thank your first responders, your police, and everybody that's out there risking life and limb on a daily basis, even when they're not on duty. That's a very important distinction. is that there's many people that are trained to do things, and they will not walk past if they see you're in need, whether they're on the clock or not.
Only you can prevent forest fires. I just added that. Anywho, I went to a flea market recently, and because I love to shop for fleas, and I found Star Trek: The Next Generation, the entire series on DVD for $10. That's 7 seasons of Star Trek. And so, of course, my 2-year-old son and I have been watching Star Trek together, which it holds his attention, but sometimes he falls asleep. That's okay. He's young. And one of the special features talked about how they invented some of the things on the show. The mother invention, if you will, is necessity. So we're going to start by talking first about Geordi LaForge, the character from Star Trek: The Next Generation. Are you familiar with Geordi LaForge?
Are you asking me or are you asking the audience?
I'm asking you. I'm not asking them.
Well,
I can't hear them.
Reading Rainbow, dude.
Reading Rainbow guy. LeVar Burton plays Geordi LaForge, who first season is a member of the bridge crew, second season on is the chief engineer. He has been born blind and has cybernetic implants in his head to allow him to see color spectrums and energy spectrums and whatnot. And in the first season, they kind of address how that works. They show a little bit of what his visor sees, and he's asked, well, how can you understand what you're seeing? And LaForge answers, well, that's how I see everything. So that's how I'm used to it. You need to learn how to filter the various frequencies and stuff that I see. It's pretty cool. However, you're probably wondering, who was the design genius that came up with that visor?
Oh my God, who was the design genius that came up with that visor?
Well, I'm glad you asked. It was a hair company, a hair products company. First, they designed a number of different special seeing devices for Geordi, which included stuff that basically looks like sunglasses. And they didn't want to have it look like some dude in the future chilling out with some sunglasses on. So they wanted to break away from everything that looked like glasses. Okay, here comes the dude from the future chilling out with sunglasses. You kind of look like Shia LaBeouf. You're right there. I mean, an older version, maybe not as personal trainer-id as he is. That's a pretty good look for you.
maybe not as personal trainer-ish.
I said personal trainer Ed.
Oh, sorry. Yes, definitely special.
Which is not a word, but I've just made it up, and now it is. Anyways, they found a child's headband, which is one of these things that kind of opens up like a mouth. It has teeth on it like this. And they put it on their head. I can't show you because I have no hair. And it would close and hold their hair in place, so it would look something like this. Well, because the tines are so close together, there's space in between, you can put it up against your face and see through it. And no special design needed to make it so you can see through it, because the tines are close together and your eyes would basically filter out the visor.
Well, there is something else to be said for the science behind the visor as well, is that he's got optical nerve implants where there's a little, almost like magnetic surface that when he puts his visor on, it clicks in place, and that's
and there are, if you look, there are little LED lights on each side that blink that they put on there to make it seem more like he just doesn't put a visor on. There's actually science behind it.
Because he's blind, so he can't see through the visor. But the visor is in the place where his eyes are, so that signal goes in through that optical whatever thing.
I don't really remember much about the movies beyond First Contact, which is the best. I mean, I've seen them all. But in First Contact, he no longer wears the visor. He has what basically looks like circuitry contacts in.
He's got data eyes.
I don't know if they went back to the visor in the final 2 films. I don't remember. I'll have to go back and watch them. But the point is, this design came from a child's barrette, whatever you want to call it, design that they simply took off the head and put over the eyes, painted it black, and said, how does this look? And I don't know who it was that was in charge at the time, Gene Roddenberry, somebody like that, said, this is brilliant, let's do this. So, of course, they expanded it and eventually went on to build the items, the visor without using the barrette as the opening tool to create it. But that was the design and the first draft of what you see on the screen. So what we're talking about is how necessity and things around the house can really create a one of two things. a great kit of things you can build from, or make you into a hoarder. I can tell you from experience, in the last year, I have thrown away many, many, many items I've saved because I thought, well, you can do this with it. That's one of the dangers of having a creative mind and thinking, I can't throw this away, there's another purpose for it. Don't you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. Definitely agree with that.
For my wife, for Christmas, the first year we were married, I had created for her a shadow box. I just used wood, of course. I mean, that's not any rocket science there. And I bought a small plate of glass to put in the front, and I cut out a boomerang out of wood, painted it, and put it inside. Because I asked my wife to marry me by singing the song My Boomerang by Bare Naked Ladies. And that was one of those things, again, that just sort of came to me. I could have bought a shadow box, could have bought an actual boomerang, but I thought it would mean more if it came from me. So I designed that for her. Also, for one Christmas, I work at a radio station, and we had replaced the transmitter, and part of the parts came in a giant wooden crate. And I thought, with a little love and attention, this crate could look very much like a hope chest. So I spent a lot of time sanding and a lot of time using plastic wood to fill in the holes, and I stained it and the whole 9 yards, and built her a nice little what do you call it, a hope chest for Christmas. Another thing that came from something lying around that I could expand on and create and do cool things with. I imagine you have similar applications in what you've done.
Probably not as well as you, because my brain works differently.
Yeah, you're more of the creator. I'm more of the I said tweaker last time. I gotta find a better word for that. Improviser. I mean, I've got bags of wires and like XLR inputs and outputs that I can. One day I'll build a desk and I'll drill a hole in it and put one in there so I can mount a mic to it and not have to have the wire go across the desk. That sort of thing is what I'm about.
Well, I mean, look at Battlestar Galactica as a series. Look at Star Trek as a series. I'm sure Star Wars is guilty of it as well. Adam Savage, great example of this. You brought up XLR. What does that look like to you?
What do you mean? What does it look like to me? It looks like
that looks like a thruster pod.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
For a ship on a model, but that's the thing. It's so you've got the different levels of reality versus fiction. So the reality is repurposing something to make it something for you, a sentimental value that also could be a functional piece. So that's cool. It was a box.
A lot of times you'll be just minding your own business and you'll see a sign up that says, got bulk this for sale. And cardboard is just the example that I chose to use because it's a practical product we have right in front of us. But you can say, well, give them $10 and I get all this stuff. What would I do with it? Well, that's when the gears start turning in my head, and I think, well, I can do this with it. And that's where you get new products from old stuff. And things that you would have thrown away actually has additional value. The fear, though, is becoming a hoarder, and that's one of the things that my house doesn't look like an episode of Hoarders, though sometimes with my 2-year-old son, it can, but because he likes to strew his toys about the house.
I know all about that with my kids.
But having bags and boxes and stuff of parts, the sad thing is if you get too many that one day you'll use, you end up not being able to find them when you do need them. So I adopted a new philosophy, which is if I haven't used it in 6 months, and I'm not going to plan to use it in 6 months, do I really need it? And if so, I'll keep it. If I don't need it, then I'm going to throw it away. So a lot of stuff I got rid of. But I got rid of by finding people like-minded like me. Like recently, I called Clyde over to the radio station, and I said, I have a great big pile of computer parts, so feel free to look them over if you want any, before I send them to the electronic recycling event.
Yeah, and if I had a now use, I probably would have taken you up on that.
Yeah, he just looked at it and said, I don't want anything.
No. I'm trying to get rid of stuff right now because I have several projects that are coming up that actually do fall into this category of repurposing of sorts. One of them repurposing a corner bathtub, for example. Now, granted, it's not really going to be that dissimilar from its function. It's going to hold water. So it's not really that dissimilar, other than it's not going to be used for bathing. So
fish? Is it going to be used for fish?
It actually is going to be for fish. My daughter is very much into fish. She really likes, bass and salmon. And
there's something really fishy about that.
There is. But she's also very much into aquatic animals in general, and she's like, I want to do this. And I'm like, well, how about we do this? What do you think of that? And she's like, oh, I like that. So what we may do is if we can, it'll be a winter thing most likely, but maybe I can do a series of small snippet videos where, we're building this thing and doing this stuff and being as vague as humanly possible to not actually say what I'm going to be doing.
Gotcha. Some of the things that you can do with stuff that you can't get rid of, or maybe you don't want to, if you have old tires, a lot of people use them as a planter for plants. And they don't look tacky when you put dirt in them and flowers over them. It looks like you planned it that way. A new trend I think is interesting is a lot of people will get a bucket and cut it in half, set it on the ground to look like it fell over, and then plant plants coming out of the half bucket. So it's sort of a we did this on purpose accident kind of thing that takes something, maybe it's a bad bucket, gives it new life.
Oh, I've got some friends of ours that are taking tires and making them into like dog beds.
That's a good idea.
I was like, well, that's kind of cool. So, but I mean, there's so many, like, a lot of people are getting into this whole, like, what do we call it? Not repurposing, upcycling?
Upcycling, yes.
So we're doing this upcycling thing. It's kind of it's a thing now. And I think the idea is to try and bring in some more, environmental awareness, less landfill, more put the garbage in my yard.
Mm-hmm.
But as functional art as opposed to,
dysfunctional art.
Right. But you got to ask yourself, too. It's like, would you have bought something to put in that spot in your yard just because, or is it one of those things where you're putting that stuff in your yard because you want to figure out a way to use something without throwing it away?
I think that there are pluses and minuses to each of these projects. Another thing that you can do that's not necessarily upcycling is repair of things you think are not repairable. For example, my wife had a Santa Claus, a ceramic Santa Claus with a sign that said something like, snow must go or something, I don't remember. And it fell down and it broke. And she's like, now I have to throw it away. And I said, my ex-wife bought me a package of Mighty Putty. I don't use it for anything. Let me just see if I can build the snow back around where it broke off. And so I molded it in, and it dried, and a little bit of white paint, and next thing you know, you can't even tell it was broken. Instead of throwing things away, sometimes it's best to see, can I modify this? There are limits to that. I have a perfect example in the speaker at the radio station. We have a powered speaker that fell from a gust of wind, and it cracked. And I repaired it with super glue and tape, electrician's tape, actually, and some of that waterproof tape we talked about in our first episode.
Flex Seal.
Flex Seal. It doesn't look pretty. From a distance, you can't tell because it's black, but you have to ask yourself, can I do a repair that'll make it look like it's not repaired? And if I can't, maybe it's time to buy a new one. That's a tough decision to make.
It is, but see, that's right back up there with collecting stuff. Not necessarily being a hoarder, but collecting stuff. Like, it's like, oh, well, this really has value to me as something that could be this.
Do you collect things?
Yes.
What, Fez or? I like to have a box of Fezes. I could just different day, different mood, different Fez.
Okay, well,
is Fezes the plural of Fez?
Fezes? Well, what if
Physiques?
What if you had a bunch of Fez that are on your head and you drop them on the ground and then you have a whole pile of them? Would that be Fezes?
Maybe Fez is the plural of like fe. Fezes are cool.
Of course.
That's how you know. Doctor Who said Fezes are cool.
Exactly.
So Fez is singular. I collect records.
this is kind of not a really long story, but a kind of a short long story. Anyway, you can ask Andrea. She'll tell you. I have had.
I know who Andrea is, but those watching the show do not.
I lovingly call her my wife, not wife. Somebody wants us to get married. I
can perform the ceremony. I'm a notary.
We just haven't done it yet.
We can do it today.
I know we could, right here on the stream.
Call her up. We'll do it right. We'll film it and everything. We'll put it on YouTube. It'll be a sensation.
Honey, would you like to get married right now?
Run to the city hall, grab a marriage license. We'll get this done.
We'll do it. Anyway, so I have always had a hard time with projects. I like to learn, like, everything. I want to do this. I want to do that, which turns into a hobby. Now, for people that have ever had a hobby,
sorry, I didn't.
Typically, you have a love of a specific thing that you make your hobby. So,
you were late on that one.
Sorry. So, this hobby idea is that, like, you might do like model planes. Okay. Or you might do model trains. Which, by the way, model trains. Keep that one in mind because I have an example of recycling for that one.
Remember, we don't want an hour-long episode.
And I have done. Yeah, we do. We definitely want one. I have all these different hobbies that I wanted to do. Like, it's like, oh, I got to do this because I don't have a hobby. I got to do this because I don't have a hobby. And I end up with all these different things.
So you're saying that no one's ever been like, dude, get a hobby to you?
No, she doesn't need to.
She said no one, not just her.
Right. She's like, you need
to stop having hobbies.
A hobby. So my hobby, the longest lasting hobby that I've had now, which has gone on for over 3 years now. Would you like to guess?
You collect spores, molds, and fungus.
No, but that is a really good idea. I want to get those little spheres that I can collect and put the algae and spores.
You know what that's from?
Yes, actually, what? Egon.
Egon from Ghostbusters. Good job.
Boom.
Golf clap.
You like that? That would be this. Anyway, so the 3D printing and laser stuff, okay, that's all CNC related. That has been the longest hobby I have had.
And do you make money at said hobby?
On occasion.
I'm a DJ and I collect records, so I guess you could say I make money by playing music. So yeah, that works.
But yeah, I mean, I do, I make a little bit of money here and there, doing like random projects and stuff, like that, the one right there, I'm kind of a big deal. That's not really for money. That one was because, just to show my appreciation of the fire department. But it is made from recycled material. So, it's a, repurposed, upcycled type thing. Now, when I was getting back to the other thing was the trains. There's a lot of construction sites that are putting in that foam insulation in houses, new construction. Very, very high R value, but they always end up with these slivers. Maybe that they consider to not be reusable. Mm-hmm. There are people that in the model train avenue that love that stuff.
Yeah, you can paint them and shape them into what you want.
Exactly. Yeah, D&D people too.
Yeah.
They'll be like, oh, foam. And it's like...
I have foam! Yeah. My life is complete!
Now, if you've never lived in Connecticut, you've never experienced the Dow chemical fire and what foam actually does when it gets lit on fire.
What's interesting, by the way, is that I've been married twice, and both women were born in Connecticut, though I met them in Maine. Figure that out. Continue.
Well, how can I continue if I'm trying to figure that out? You're confusing.
I meant like over the next couple of years. Figure out why I'm attracted to women from Connecticut.
Oh. That is a good point.
Yeah, and it wasn't on purpose. I wasn't like, excuse me, before we get together, were you born in Connecticut? Because that's one of my rules.
Now, are they from Mystic?
No.
Okay, then you're okay.
No, one was from Hartford. I don't remember where my current wife was born. She was her dad was in the Coast Guard, so she was born on a Coast Guard base in Connecticut.
Now, see, if she said she was like born on a Coast Guard cutter or something like that, that would have been slick.
She wasn't born on a bayou either. So Credence, you don't have dibs on her. Go ahead.
So anyway, yeah, the recycled foam, I mean, that stuff is awesome for, like, they make the dice towers, you make fully integrated, like, Dungeons and Dragons type sets that you can do, like...
Are you a D&D guy?
I have been. I have a buddy...
Divorce and Disownment was what I was talking about. What were you talking about?
I have a buddy that is actively a D&D guy.
Okay.
Although, I don't know, I mean, some days it's like, uh-oh. Because I tend to say charged things on Facebook at times, and... Well.
You? Oh, perish the thought.
Anyway, not everybody thinks like I do, so my apologies. I want a better world.
All right, we're going to cut this episode down. We may be back with another episode with the same outfits on because we might just be filming 2 episodes today. What? Supposed to be shocked.
Well, you're not supposed to tell people that.
I said, well, I don't want them to see the next one because those guys never change their clothes.
Oh,
ew.
Valid.
Okay, so what's your pop culture reference for the week that you'd like to discuss?
Dude, you just asked me pop culture reference.
Yes. Which refer to pop culture you want to discuss. Last time we talked about The Boys.
Well, mine was more of a realistic, culture.
I want to talk about, actually, Young Justice.
Please.
Young Justice was originally a Cartoon Network television show that was canceled, not because it didn't have viewers, which is the most ridiculous thing of all time. It was canceled because they couldn't sell toys, because the audience tended to be more young adult than children. So they couldn't find. They built the marketing budget into, the operating budget into toy sales, so they could get funding for the show. So they canceled it because they were short-sighted. Fans got upset, and at one point, Netflix said, maybe we could make a show. And DC Comics looked at the idea of Netflix making a show and said, maybe we can start our own streaming service and make our own show. So they brought Young Justice back. They brought it back. They aged the characters a little bit, which I thought was interesting. And they made it gory and filled with swears. Not a lot of swears. So it's really the same show. It's just a little bit more edgy. But the goriness was a surprise. Especially when they brought in the character of Lobo. Do you know who Lobo is?
Nope. Lobo Marunga?
No, Lobo is, for lack of a better word, he's kind of like the equivalent to Deadpool in the DC world in the sense that he cannot die. You can blow him up, and he just grows back. In fact, one of his powers is if you remove a part of his body, he becomes a clone of him.
That's terrifying.
And he'll regrow that body part. Recently done in live action on the canceled television show Krypton. They brought him in, and it was pretty gory having him in the show. In fact, the post-credit scenes have Lobo in it. You should totally watch it if you're into the show. It's a cartoon, obviously, but it's on DC Universe streaming. I suggest you go out and get that because Titans, Doom Patrol, Swamp Thing, they're having a new Harley Quinn series that looks very gory, too. A lot of live action and cartoon stuff. Plus, they have movies. The original Batman Returns, that sort of thing.
That just brought up something completely inappropriate in my head that I can't even say right now.
Which is good, because I want our channel to be family friendly, so keep that inappropriate thought in your head where it belongs. We need to do this at the same time. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's our show for this week, and we will see you again for the next show, which could be... It's being filmed today, but it could be a long time before I get around to editing it. So
just remember, live long and prosper.
You're smart enough, you're good enough, and gosh darn it, people like you.